All right, I rewatched that video and realized you guys couldn't see the map, right? So, like, here the pink is the linguistic line, right? And the what is this? Turquoise is the religious line. So everybody within this turquoise line is of the same similar language and similar religion. These guys are of a similar language but a different religion. All right, let's see. I think it would also be fun to allow the player to create his own sporting system. Pre-programmed sports would be available. Sports dampen discontent, obviously. Both costs and generates money. Sports and cultural figures can also be used for morale boosters. That's dampening discontent. With upgrades in tech or for whatever reason, sports can transform over time. So again, this is about a long civilization, right? So and sports do. I mean, you can just keep like sports don't have to even be a part of your game, but um, if you wanted to get into, you could allow the player to get into it, right? Boom, 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 boom. If you wanted to go dark, right? So this is for the darker game players. You could with later with later tech upgrades introduce brutal sports, which include death. These could be of two types. One type is criminals and defeated soldiers, like the Roman gladiators. Of course, this would create a Spartacus rebellion threat. The second brutal sport would be more voluntary, right? And you could have like this cultural heroic ideal or a fanatic religious motivation, right? But these sports would be voluntary, but they would be deadly. So again, that's just for the players who like it dark every now and then, right? The player could control the religious and or holiday calendar. Okay, this is a fun one, and this is about identity and assimilation. Holiday calendar if we're dealing with a secular democracy, right? The calendar would be a part of a strong identity for you, like tribal identity or religious identity or both. The calendar would also be a part of the assimilation process in that you can change your calendar at any time. Although this would probably be a calendar technology on the tech tree. The holidays can be randomly generated or chosen by the player, right? So this is again gives more player choice. They don't have to deal with the calendar, or they can have fun with it. Boom, boom, boom. You would also create those faithful to the old calendar, right? You're always going to be creating because this calendar you create, some of your NPCs are going to like, and if you try to change it, and like why would you change it, right? You're going to change, like, let's say you've conquered these two areas, and so you now have two different linguistic groups, three actually right here, but we'll just say two different linguistic groups and two different religions, right? And so you want to assimilate both these into one, so that now they're one people. So you're going to take some of their holidays and put them into their holidays, and you're going to combine the calendars, and now they're one people, right? Um, like personally, I think it's kind of silly that we unify our calendar. I think it's kind of cool when different tribes have different calendars. It's kind of it's kind of cooler that way. Who cares that we have to work our heads to try to figure out what the real quote unquote day is, right? So um, I think we should spread calendars out, but that's just my personal opinion, right? This is just a traditional strategy game, right? Where you're just putting the boot on, but with a smile. And malice is the nourishment of the world, right? So that's fun, right? You create people who are faithful, right? So all these people here, so when you change the calendar, all these people here are going to be faithful to the old calendar, right? Not all of them. There'll be a certain percentage, and that percentage will depend on probably factors. Another opposition identity for the old calendar. But you could add in another tribe's holidays onto the new calendar, creating a broader identity. There is now more you in the world, right? Because that's whatever. Okay, now let's talk about sex and alien sex, okay? Now, if you have two different alien species, then there are one of two possibilities. They can either have sex and breed, creating a hybrid species, or they can't. If they can't, their relationship does not necessarily have to be violent. They can work out some sort of sharing and living along peaceful in some areas together, or they will be violent. Either way, there will be an incompatible bond between the two groups. They will be separate, right? They will be two groups. Maybe, though, for some species, tech on the tech tree can be discovered which will make them sexually breedable. In these conditions, a new identity can be created. But the player can also choose to slowly hybridize his whole society. This will create races, right? So if you want to bring in, if two alien species can now create a hybrid species, there's going to be some people who don't like this. So there's problems if you try to hybridize. But there's also benefits because, but you know, and what one of the problems is this new identity is forming. So you have to try to make this new identity as a part of your own, right? But cause problems. This new identity can always threaten to break away unless they are somehow assimilated. Plus, if you are a player controlling two or more groups, and one group starts to rebel, you can use the other groups against them, right? So let's think back to like these guys taking over the whole galaxy. Like, how would they do that? Like, let's say they, since they're close to this land, they go over and they take over this whole territory, right? But this is you doing it, right? So now you have this huge population here and a small population here, and this is the primal population, right? But you're the identity guy, so you can easily grab these people's identity and put their face upon it. Now these people are probably going to get mad, but you can basically turn against your people, and no, you wouldn't be turning against all of them, you know, because a lot of them would be a part of the yip yip yeah yeah, you know. But yeah, so that's so you can use these guys against these guys, right? So that's an option in this game. Therefore, you can give the player the option to suppress technology. In this case, the player would suppress the sexual breeding technology, right? Because you don't want these races for whatever reason, you know. Maybe the one of the species in questions is a problem species for you, so you don't want them breeding and creating a new identity, which is going to be even further removed from you, most likely. So you don't want this sexual breeding tech to come out, right? For whatever reason. Anyways, furthermore, different tribes can agree. Okay, so furthermore, different tribes can agree to suppress tech which would harm their income. So we're getting out of space now, and we're just going to general strategy game theory. And we're saying that all these guys are going to get together and agree to suppress a tech which would harm their technology. Right? So all of these guys. So this game would allow, because like most strategy games, it's all about that building up that tech tree, building up that tech tree. But in this game, you could like, you know, suppress the tech tree, right? So that would be fun. Harm their income. Furthermore, the closing off of borders means closing off of sexual relations. Okay, so now we're back to sexual relations and just general sexual relations theory. So the closing off of borders means closing off of sexual relations, which ensures a strong tribal identity, right? So that's why one reason why you'd want to close off the borders. Racists like to close off the borders because they want a strong tribal identity because they are insecure. Sexual merging creates opportunity for high population growth, right? But also the danger of new identities, right? So we're bringing this idea of new identities into strategy games. And I think that's fun because there's opportunities and dangers. Expanding your identity to include the newcomers has long term benefits, but strong opposition from parts of the quote unquote primal tribe. In the short term or the long term, maybe, right? These, like, the racists could, the racists could start out here, and the racists are still with you in the space game, right? But maybe they've transformed, and now they've got the face of the old racists, but they're racist against an alien species, whatever. Uh, this is, you can have fun with words in this game, I think. Sex involves identity, right? So sex involves identity. Changes in sexual relations means changing identity in reality, whether the official identity changes. The discrepancy between the two identities creates conflict, right? I think that's self-evident. Maybe we could also create tech rebels who defy your authority, right? So that would be fun. So let's say you're suppressing technology, but again, your NPCs, some of them have minds of their own. How dare they, right? And so tech rebels will start to emerge in this game to defy you. Um, in this case, they would discover secretly the breeding tech, which you have kept hidden for X amount of years. And they slowly begin to breed a new species, right? You can suppress them at first, but it will get to a point where you will be forced to accept the tech and maybe frame some willing patsies. Maybe we could say that the ability to get out of a tech revolution without harm can be achieved with linguistic knowledge 8. Any tech revolution before sacred number 8 would be dangerous and damaging to growth, right? It's going to be dangerous because this tech rebel is going to grab the hearts and minds of your NPCs, and so maybe it could even lead to permadeath in certain conditions. But if you have sacred number 8, you can walk away unharmed. If you wanted to go dark, you could in certain regions of your empire, especially in areas of high opposition identities to you. You could legalize prostitution and promote loose sexual relations between the peoples of this region. Then at some point, you can introduce disease and sex disease as a way to reduce opposition and then encourage colonies to come in to further your assimilation goals. Choose love, everybody. Then, quote unquote, your religion can come in to save everybody, repeal the laws, and lift everybody up. They can be put to the task. Your religious people who move into this territory, they can be put to the task of secretly finding all identity books in the area, especially anti-you books, and have them disappear. Choose love, everybody. Many books will survive being passed on in defiance of you, but many will assimilate and many books will disappear, lowering regional identity. Alright. Yeah, no, this sounds like a really fun game so far. Okay, now let's talk about future tech, right? So, if we want to talk about underground homes, what are the vulnerabilities of underground homes? Well, the vulnerabilities is that you need air in those homes. And if somebody is standing above your air intake, then they can set a fire and suck all the air out. Um, Now, how are these vulnerabilities overcome? Um, well, let's say you build an underground home and then you have an air intake valve, not just one, but several. Um, and these air intake valves fill up an air tank. And each home has 2 or 3 air tanks. And you fill up an air tank, filter the air, and then you breathe from the air tank, right? And so you've now overcome these vulnerabilities. Now I talk about underground homes because um, it really irritates me with these stupid, and there's some of them are just great games. They're great games, but then they come to the nuclear age, and the nuclear age is just this civilization killer. Oh my God, it's a civilization killer, right? But that it doesn't necessarily have to be a civilization killer, right? If if you get to the nuclear age, then it is a civilization killer for everybody above ground, right? OMG. But if you have a safe, like if you reach underground tech 1, which gives you air tanks, then you're now safe from a nuclear weapon, right? Um, and then there's underground tech 2, which is necessary for space travel, right? So everybody's talking about getting into space, but I mean, before we get into space, we need underground tech 2. And what would that be? That would be recycling and or creating air, right? And so now you don't even need the air tanks, right? So this is a second upgrade. Do-do-do. So modern day propaganda makes our strategy games unrealistic, right? Because nuclear warfare is a civilization killer, but this is only true for above ground civilizations, right? So if the nuclear age hits and you don't get underground, then yeah, wiped out. Nuclear warfare makes us fearful and totally dependent, right? Totally dependent. So that's the goal of nuclear warfare, right? Doo-doo-doo. And you can even build that into your game. Like if there's a high degree of discontent during the time of nuclear warfare, um, you could not build the underground homes, and then the people would be afraid, right? Uh, anyways, um, no, that would be fun, right? My argument, though, is that for every weapon, our reason and imagination can come up with a defense, right? I mean, this kind of goes back to what I wrote earlier, right? I've heard someone say that storytelling has become formulaic and has lost its magic. Lose faith in God, lose faith in man, but never, ever lose faith in imagination. And oh my goodness, we can overcome this nuclear warfare scare. Um, do 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 do. I mean, let's think about robots. People just annoy me when they talk about robots. Well, how much time do we have? We're gonna get into the economy next. Um, let's see here. Do do do. Sometimes our robot movies are silly because all robots, as far as I know, in all the movies are of a particular type of robot. All these robots have communication devices in their hardware. These communication devices allow the quote-unquote evil AI in the movies to control them. If robots are made without communication devices in their hardware, then these robots are individuals. Hive robots are definitely a threat, but individual robots are only as dangerous as the creator and programmer of that robot. If you make it illegal to build hive robots, then you can have a society filled with safe robots. You can build individual robots to help fight hive robots. Placing AI into an individual robot is a different discussion. I do not know enough about the specifics of AI beyond the mind-numbing, self-mouth shaming public discourse. Yeah, no, I think that's all self-explanatory. It's, we have a really silly discussion when it comes to robots. Uh, and we just have a really silly discussion in strategy video games when it just comes to future tech. Like when we get into the space strategy game, it should be really fun, right? Because by the time you're getting into space and nuclear age, everybody's going underground. So this whole civilization is now transforming into a different civilization. And that's, I think, what you see throughout this game. You see a lot of, like, it's more historically realistic. You look throughout times, people are in different costumes, they have different music, they have different ways of speaking to one another, different customs and morals and whatever thoughts. You see constant transformation in, oh my goodness, it's history. History is very fluid, and the strategy video games today are kind of static. And this is definitely a more fluid game. And so by the time you get to the future, I mean, it's like everything that you've seen up until now is going to be different. Yeah, no, we can definitely completely improve our future tech, though.